All right, welcome, Bobby. When did we first meet? Some
It
years
was
ago.
like 2010, 2011 was the first time we actually had a conversation, and you were just starting with Optimal EFT, and you introduced me to it at the end of something we were working on. As a matter of fact, numb hands back then. And
Yeah.
there was some tension I was feeling, and I literally felt it just like let go. And I asked you, what are you doing? And that you said, I'm working on something. So
Well, I was using what we are now calling conversational EFT. I was bringing an unseen therapist in. But anyway, you've had a number of improvements in your own life. We're going to focus on two of them: numbness in your hands
yes.
and chronic bronchial asthma. Why don't
Yes.
you take a moment and talk about how severe those were before we ever started doing anything with unseen therapist?
Well, the numbness in my hands started about late 80s, 1988, 89. And I was a graphic artist back then, which you had to use your hands to draw. That was before computers, and everything had to draw. And it ended up, I had to stop working in that field because I couldn't use my hands anymore. I couldn't feel the pencil. I couldn't feel the devices that I had to use. And then it was continual. And back then it was considered carpal tunnel syndrome. And I just thought there was something else to it. So I never had the surgery, never went down that road. But say in recent years, it probably affected me 60 to 70% of my time. And when I was driving, when I drove, my hands would be so numb, I couldn't feel the steering wheel. Now I still had grip, but I couldn't feel the steering wheel. And it kind of concerned me. I didn't drive as much because of that. I mean, when you can't feel what you're supposed to be doing, it was very concerning. So, I couldn't write anymore. When I used to like to write letters and things, I couldn't do that anymore. So it affected a lot of what I did with my hands. I could do some general things, but after a while I couldn't feel my hands, so I wouldn't be able to do them. So that was the numbness in my hands, and how it was pretty severe, I would say. And the chronic bronchial asthma, I've had that since the 1970s, or had that, I should say. And that was kind of periodic, but when it came on, it was almost like you were choking to death because you couldn't get it clear. I'm sure most people understand when they've swallowed something down the wrong pipe, and it's pretty pronounced how they cough. And I would do that for 15, 20 minutes to a half hour, trying to get it clear, feeling like I couldn't get it clear. So it was many times when I felt it coming on, I would simply leave because nobody wants to witness that. And the medications that they'd put me on would knock me out or make me feel drowsy and disoriented all the time. So I didn't like medication. But I would do some other things to help calm it down. And then we worked on this almost 2 years ago, and there has not been one instance since then.
Well, I remember working on it, and there was a cough that was coming up just about every time there's any emotional issue showed up. Here came your cough, pretty much, okay?
And what people saw on that mystery issue was very, very mild compared to when it would build up and really show itself. So that little cough was just a minor instance compared to what it had a tendency to turn into. As the emotional issue escalated, it would just escalate as well.
And as I recall it, I don't think you and I were working together on this, and you were also working on your own with the unseen therapist in our immersification process and all of that. But as I recall it, when you and I were working together, we never aimed ever at the numb hands or the asthma, the coughing. We didn't aim at the direct symptom. We just aimed at underlying emotional issues,
right?
Which we thought were cough.
Well, it was interesting too, because as you helped me understand when it started, what were the situations, and then the cough happened, it it really made me tune into some things that I was reacting to, maybe something somebody said, and then, you know, shortly after that, I'd start coughing and have to deal with it the rest of the day. So it pointed out, okay, to take a look at those things just before it started, and then what was agitating me, what was bothering me with that I ended up with a cough. So being able to take a look at it that way, we really didn't work on the cough itself, but as you and I were working, as we touched on some things, it would show up and say, okay, you know, there's something else there to work on.
Yes.
And we also discovered I had a kind of a resistance to getting through it. And that took quite a bit of work in order to break through that resistance. And once I broke through the resistance, gone.
Yeah. That resistance is a form of what we call, in the more advanced areas of optimal EFT unseen therapist, putting stuff on the table, you know, but once it's on the table, you know, we have a high degree of success in that case. So that brings me sort of to a segue for what I'm calling impossible healings. That is, I defined it because we get so many of these with unseen therapists. It is healings that occur outside the typical reach, beyond the typical reach of man-made methods. Now, for these various things, I don't know I forgot what you did for the hands, but for the asthma, you said you were taking a lot of medications, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever you were doing didn't work, right?
No, it did not work. And the hands have gotten tremendously better. It's extremely rare now when I feel it. I'm able to drive now without any problems. And even though it is spotty and not as severe, you know, I would say they're 90% better with just continually working on clearing out my stuff.
Yeah.
And the hands have gotten better.
And I think you said the bronchial asthma gone now for 2 years. No medication involved?
No, none.
Okay. All right. Well, that qualifies as impossible. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I would agree with you.